Whenever we watch this roller coaster ride wrapped up in a soap opera known as professional wrestling, things get unhinged unlike any other form of entertainment. This is the place where wild and wacky is as common as a headlock, and I'm sure during your time as a fan, whether 2 years or 22 years, you've seen some stuff go down. The other aspect that's a blast to follow is the why of it all. Some things that happen are just compulsive, other times there's a deeper meaning. Why do these characters have the motivations they do? Why have they been led to that point? Why are they angry, jealous, or confused? Maybe the most glossed over part of the entire game is having variety in the stories. Doing the same thing over and over can get tiresome very quick. There's only so many times you can take the friendship angle before your audience gets burnt out and you lose the unpredictability element. Equally enough, animosity between two wrestlers, if done well, can be a magical thing that can suck you in. Taking a core idea and then slowly escalating things to the point where the story becomes so personal that relationships, friends, family, demons tucked far in the abyss are brought to the forefront, and the two wrestlers detest each other so much that it gets to blood feud territory. Long-winded lead-in aside, we're now 20 years on from a year that might be the greatest 365 days of WWE rivalries. When Randy Orton pissed on the dead man's grave, Matt Hardy coped with losing his girlfriend in front of the entire world, two men hung the custody of a child in the balance, and the beast was unleashed. But first, I want you to think of all the dream matches we've missed out on for one reason or another. All the top 10s you've watched or read probably have the same entries that fill up the field. Sting vs Undertaker, Shawn Michaels vs AJ Styles, CM Punk vs Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, if not for 2005, Shawn Michaels vs Kurt Angle could easily be lumped into that field. See, today you have your transfer windows and your loose brand splits, but back then, when superstars crossed brands, it had a lot of weight to it. SmackDown vs Raw felt like a bloodbath between the two sides, and on many occasions like this one, the Royal Rumble kicked things into gear. HBK came out at 19 and Angle just a short while later and lasted no time at all. In just 37 seconds, he's thrown out and he goes apoplectic. Angle Jimmy Crack kills Shawn Michaels and he looks like he got mauled by a grizzly bear. Pause these two's beef anywhere and you'll get a good chuckle because in most frames it's Kurt compulsively yelling, confused, or in the most compromising position you can imagine. For the Olympic gold medalist, the road to WrestleMania took a massive turn and he couldn't find his way onto the card after he lost a #1 contenders tournament match to fight JBL. All the while, Shawn begged for a piece of Angle the night after No Way Out. He didn't have to wait long to get his answer though. While he was wrestling Edge in a street fight, again, Kurt was thirsty for blood. He left him disoriented and then fled the murder scene. So you could see how competitive this was right off the hop. Angle was a man set off and he wanted to prove he's better. Since the day he came to WWE, people have been talking about how Shawn is the greatest wrestler in the history of the business, but in his books, there wasn't a bigger lie that was ever told than that statement. Shawn got a little bit of revenge by dressing up as a cameraman, but that was chump change compared to what Angle had up his singlet. Down his singlet. The goal was simple. Angle was going to reenact Michael's greatest hits over the next 4 weeks, and he was going to do it better than how it was done the first time. He starts off by beating down on the love child of Festus and IRS in a ladder match. The wrestler's name is Mike Haywood, and just for shits and giggles, the gold medal is up for grabs too. Angle, with the precision of a brain surgeon, picks this man apart. This is him attempting to recreate Shawn's WrestleMania 10 match. Right after the win, he shows footage of Marty Jannetty's WrestleMania debut, citing him as the man who taught his future opponent everything he knows. After the Rockers reunion on Raw, on the SmackDown that followed, Jannetty had a great showing, one that earned him a contract with World Wrestling Entertainment. Now, children, if you're younger, please never let the legend of Kurt Angle die. As time has gone on, the new wrestlers have taken over, and I think people have forgotten the astounding range Angle possessed as a performer. He was the perfect combination of everything. He could be funny 1 second, run circles around you in the ring the next, match up with big guys, small guys, then shift into whatever other gear he needed to complete the puzzle. His checklist of anything you can do, I can do better looked like this. Recreate the ladder match? Check. Send a message via Marty? Double check. Now, since the wrestling was done, he wanted to prove that he was a better entertainer than Shawn. Even though October was a long ways away, he decided a few months into the year it was Halloween come early as he dressed up as Michaels. Chaps, Sensational Sherry theme song and all. The execution of this is pinpoint perfection. He goes to send a message to Shawn with his own rendition of Sexy Boy, and only watching this clip can you get a sense of how funny this was.
Angle slap, the ankle lock, Marty Jannetty, still can't walk.
HBK watches on from the Titantron and reminds everyone why he's Mr. WrestleMania, a video package that Sherry enjoys a little bit too much for Kurt's liking, and again, this man is unhinged. They dialed the intensity to 100. Their match at WrestleMania 21 genuinely felt like it was crafted in a lab. When you have matches that hold as much potential as this did, it's very easy to be written into the letdown category, but not with these two. It was 28 minutes of perfection, real graps, real wrestlers, magic from the onset, but in the end, the ankle lock was too much and Shawn lost it all. From there, this rivalry was put on the back burner since it was a cross-branded match, so Kurt decided to chase around Sharmell for a while, but that's a story for another day. The only day that matters in this is June 13th. On that episode of Raw, Angle was selected as a draft pick. You know, the episode where everyone was really sweaty because the AC wasn't working. Out came HBK, and since he didn't have anything going on, we were set for vengeance. Kurt, Shawn, part 2. Naturally, it was going to be tough to outdo what was done at WrestleMania, and I think this one needed a stipulation. Nonetheless, it was outstanding, with Shawn getting his win back after hitting a mid-air sweet chin music. Things came to a close on Raw Homecoming. Both guys wanted a title shot. A 30-minute Iron Man match was set up, and what else do you expect? Another clinic, but there was no definitive winner, which I kind of don't mind. It further hammers home that they were evenly matched. A lot of entertainment elements were done in the lead up to WrestleMania. However, even though there was no clear winner, this was a work of art and you could feel the hatred from the onset. On the flip side,
Hide your wives, it's Edge.
You think you know me?
art imitated life when Matt Hardy met Edge. Many moons before there was a Montoya, there was a Matt who lost his girl in real life and in storyline. And let's just keep it real, Matt Hardy got cucked out on national television. If you don't know, he and Lita had been dating since 1999, and come the end of 2004, the older Hardy brother had to take some time away because of injury. Since his girlfriend was left all alone, he suggested that she tag along with Edge on the road, someone that Matt trusted and was married at the time, thinking that one of the guys who helped get his career going would be a safe bet and keep his girl company. Well, the two had an affair, and eventually Matt was tipped off by Edge's ex-wife about the two's interactions over the phone. Matt found voicemails of Adam Copeland basically asking if it was him or Hardy. He needed to know who she was going to choose. He couldn't live without knowing who Lita truly desired. She admitted to the affair, and Hardy sent her packing out of the home they lived in. The way this spread was her pictures were taken off Matt's personal website, with him eventually taking a dig at her, saying that, quote, "If you happen to run into Amy at an appearance, I think you should ask her why her pictures have been taken down." Heartbroken Hardy actually tried to fix all of this by asking Edge to move to SmackDown while he and Lita could figure out some sort of resolution to their relationship. The situation went public real quick, and fans knew that there was some sort of drama going on. WWE eventually started to confiscate signs that mentioned the love triangle. There was a whole debacle about Edge's rental car tires being slashed and Matt being pulled from shows because they thought the two would get into it. Regardless, with his knee now healed, he was ready for the call to come back, but unfortunately, he got future endeavored. Now fired from his job, fans signed a petition for him to be rehired. Even Edge's ex sent WWE emails going off on the company for firing the wrong person. But the real heat was on both Edge and Lita, both of them receiving "you screwed Matt" chants, leading to WWE pairing the two up on screen, even though they didn't date for anywhere near the time they were an on-screen duo. All this while Matt continued to do interviews saying that he was gonna marry this woman and she pissed it all away, that he was looking for wedding rings, hopeful that some sort of resolution was still possible. Vince McMahon knew he had money on his hands, so he put out the feeler during a wedding segment between the two. If anyone objected, they could speak now, and well, psych. Hardy was not there, not even in the company. He commented on this saying that WWE was rubbing it in his face and that Lita was a slut, also punting the recent releases the brand had made, but this was him knowing that he was coming back. In July of 2005, after Paul Heyman did that ECW promo, Matt, perfect to the day where his 90-day compete would have expired, attacked Edge while he was on his way to the ring. Commentary didn't say a word and made this feel as real as possible. After Edge's match, Hardy attacked again using his real name, saying that he was gonna make Adam's life hell. He called him a bastard and Lita a whore, plugged his Ring of Honor appearance, and then told WWE they could kiss his ass. They then continued to blur the lines perfectly. And look, listen, spoiler alert, this is a man who was injured and had his girl taken away, just wanted a family, just wanted everything to be okay, but he looked overly obsessive in this. And what made matters worse was he lost the feud and then got sent packing. For everything that had happened, this made Edge into an even bigger star. He continued to draw heat and elevate himself. Well, like I said, Matt got cucked out. On Raw, Edge mentioned that he wasn't supposed to talk about Hardy because he was the man who couldn't separate his personal life from his professional life. During Bite This, Lita threw grenades at Hardy, saying that if it was online, it was on in his house. Chronically online and in the WWE? Matt countered with a simple question. Why? Why did Lita do it? The whole Bite This bit was the two airing out their dirty laundry, which you should go check out, but I think having given this a second glance, the most underrated part of this feud is Edge. He said that the whole situation was bullshit, that the keyboard warriors online knew nothing about what was going on, that it was ruining his life, and even though Edge is supposed to be the true bad guy in all of this, things feel more real when the bad guy basically admits that everything going on is affecting him. Vince introduced Hardy back to the Raw audience and he told the fans that even though Lita, Amy Dumas, was quote-unquote married to Kane on TV, she came home to him every night. Unpacking everything right then and there, Edge ruined Matt's chance at having a family, that his personal and professional life will be so miserable that Edge is going to wish that he's dead, and the only thing that would make Matt more happy than permanently injuring him would be if he was killed in a car crash before he had a chance to get to him. Edge, in a backstage interview with JR, told Matt that he asked Vince to hire him back. With what he wanted to do to him, he'd be in jail for assault, and that he should thank him for bringing him these reactions and putting him in the main event scene where he'll never be again. Bookended by him making out with Lita. Their match at SummerSlam was not great, with Edge winning in under 5 minutes. 8 days later, their street fight on Raw was easily what should have happened on that stacked card in the first place. It went to a no contest with Matt hitting a side effect from the side of the stage, and by this point, the shoot stuff was toned down and it lost a lot of the heat it had. At Unforgiven, these two met in a steel cage match, with the two topping the previous match. Matt hit a leg drop from the top of the cage, so it was 1-1-1. The decider was a Money in the Bank ladder match on Raw. The winner would get the championship opportunity inside, and the loser would leave the brand and be sent packing to SmackDown. The man who had to move over was Matt Hardy. Somewhere around the die in a car crash area, the bar graph started to take a nosedive. The story ran out of building blocks because it was one of these things where how many times are you going to say the same thing realistically within a 2-month stretch? All three of them have talked about how this wasn't anything physical between Adam and Amy. The relationship was emotional, and that Edge was the instigator in all of this. Watching back Hardy's interview with Chris Van Vliet, he doesn't really want to get into this too much, and understandably so. Jokes aside, this man truly thought he had found the one, and then to lose that within the blink of an eye, have everything happen, have it play out so publicly, and then to lose the feud too, rough. Lita has talked about how the way in which this was painted made things seem much worse than what actually happened. A bro code betrayal aired out on TV for the entire world to see. A nightmare situation for everyone involved. If we had a glimpse into Randy Orton's nightmares, they'd probably look a little bit like this.
Hello, Randy. What's the matter, Randy? What's wrong? Where am I, Randy? Enjoying the ride, Randy. Randy Orton, I'm coming for you. Randy. coming for you.
It goes without saying, WWE was heavily invested in Randy Orton. Backlash Classic with Mick, Legend Killer run, world title win, exit from Evolution, the whole nine. Unfortunately, they miscalculated. His face run wasn't what they intended it to be, and come the next year, he was in this weird make or break period. On the cusp of greatness, but needing that something to level up. That something to get him back on an upward trajectory and righten the ship. Fortunately for him, the dead man had been reborn, and so was he. Billy Graham asked Randy to go to a place no one had ever gone, and from here, Orton became unhinged. He locked eyes with the dead man on the road to WrestleMania, and he locked in. The mission was simple: beat the streak. Nothing else mattered. He was tunnel vision on that single goal, driven by meeting fear head on, overzealous, and not knowing the bear he was about to poke. Anyone who doubted him wasn't just asking for forgiveness, they were planted right then and there. If you even questioned his motivations, you were done. It was Randy Orton against the world. Kane told him that he could not beat what he did not understand, while Cowboy Bob Orton just kinda spawned out of nowhere and told his son's WrestleMania opponent to have mercy on him. You've already been told about this 1,000 times, you know about the chokeslam counter and how overambition cost Randy Orton. This was merely a kickoff to an absolutely absurd rivalry. WWE wanted Orton to be the guy who ended the streak, but out of respect, he declined. Undertaker was still undefeated, and similar to Shawn and Kurt, the rivalry was paused for a bit, this because Orton was injured. He returned in June to announce that he was a SmackDown draft selection, also laying out the dead man, but again, we had to wait. During that waiting period, Undertaker was attacked and choked out by Muhammad Hassan and his boys. Eventually, this rivalry got going as Orton cost Taker a world title match at SummerSlam before challenging him to a fight on that same card. Now, here's where the spooky, magical, supernatural, voodoo, hypnotic, purple, mind control, earthbending, waterbending of The Undertaker begins. After he's challenged to a match, he turns the letters RKO into RIP. Then, while Orton's taking on Kamala, for some reason, the lights go black, and again, Randy sees his initials turn to rest in peace. At this point in time, Orton firmly knows it's game over. His shot at immortality is going to go up in smoke, but there's always that young gun belief inside of him that he can overcome anything. The next match went in his favor after a fan jumped into the ring at SummerSlam. The brief pause in the match allowed for Orton to hit an RKO and score a win over the dead man. The fan ended up being Cowboy Bob Orton back with his son. Now we were square at 1-1. Where do we go now? Well, Randy doesn't sit quietly at all. Forget pissing on a tombstone. This man might as well have set up a toilet on Undertaker's grave. Randy auctions off a DVD on WWE.com to support The Undertaker's retirement fund. The Ortons eventually get the dollar amount put on a check, and Undertaker casually sets this on fire. During another matchup between these two, Bob has something to show Taker in a U-Haul truck. It's a casket that features a mannequin of him attempting to outfuck the king of fuckery. He still won the match. Now, Bob, what does that tell you? Even after you attempted to do that, maybe you should tell your son that today isn't the day. Tomorrow isn't the day. Just let him be. Caskets became a theme of this storyline as a 2-on-1 handicap casket match was made for No Mercy. No matter what Orton and his dad did, they just couldn't get one up on Taker, with him pulling off one final trick by featuring both of them laying inside a casket to signal their future. The dead man dominated most of the match, with him making light work of the older Orton, who eventually used a fire extinguisher from inside the casket before Randy was able to push him in, nail him with a steel chair to the head, and win it. But again, that wasn't enough. No. With his number one op locked inside, he proceeds to poke holes in the casket and then eventually light it on fire. All in all, killing The Undertaker. Full-on criminal behavior. And yeah, that was it. Undertaker sat quietly, nothing else crazy happened, and Orton did it. Except, that's not what happened. As he was celebrating SmackDown's win at Survivor Series, Druids placed the same casket at the top of the stage, and out of the flames was guess who? Every time Randy thought it was safe, Undertaker would come right back, and that's why the simplicity of this story was so fun. This arrogant stud who's just had a year for the ages thinks he's unbeatable, but he's pulled back down at every turn. Orton was the personification of insanity. If it didn't die the first 5 times, what makes you think that the 6th is going to go in your favor? WWE had been honoring Eddie Guerrero by having his lowrider in the entranceway. To end one show, Orton placed The Undertaker in the back of the car and rammed it into the stage to cause an explosion. Surprisingly, this was the moment where Undertaker decided to use his full powers. Randy in one segment was trying to leave the ring, and anywhere he went throughout the arena, he was met by caskets. It was like he was contained inside his own personal hell, a hell he couldn't escape, and it was all his doing. He couldn't outmatch the dead man. Undertaker asked Randy if he thinks he's killed him before announcing the rivalry ender. Hell in a Cell, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and despite Randy Orton's attempt to not have this match, he'd made his bed, now it was time to lie in it. But what did Undertaker have up his sleeve before the match? Well, let's go through it real quick. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, Exhibit D, Exhibit E, Exhibit F. Randy is getting tormented so bad, he's so drained, so done with everything, he announces he will retire from World Wrestling Entertainment. In his mid-20s, he can't handle the stress, he can't handle the heat, he flew too close to the sun, and look what happened. The Hell in a Cell match I think is slept on. It's real solid but never talked about as much as it should be. Undertaker won and we got this legendary visual. Undertaker didn't catch Bob Orton's hepatitis C, and that was that. A story of a man who was uber confident, and him being over ambitious cost him everything. See, the only issue is he didn't learn from his mistakes. This wasn't even the peak of Orton's nut jobbery. I don't know if you know this, but 2009 Randy Orton was a menace. Today, the man that could lay claim to that title is Dominic Mysterio, but back in 2005, he was a 7-year-old on his PlayStation Portable, living life like the rest of us. He probably enjoyed a good episode of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, a nice day in grade 3 doing absolutely nothing. He was your everyday late 90s, early 2000s kid, except he was the son of one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. The question is, which one? The story we just talked about was when overconfidence leads to your own demise. This one is a tale of how insecurities can cause you to spiral out of control to a point of no return. To a point where you get so psychologically drained, so obsessed with your goal that you start using anything and everything at your disposal to gaslight. It's pretty well known. Ray, Eddie, Halloween Havoc, WCW, the LWO, the whole lead into them coming to WWE, so we'll pick it up at No Way Out. Here's where Eddie Guerrero teamed up with Rey Mysterio and won the tag team titles since Ray had no one by his side. Mr. I've had surgery 5 times on my left knee should have known what he was getting himself into at this very moment. How is he going to trust someone whose mantra was lie, cheat, and steal? Right from the hop, the fractures in the relationship were crystal clear. Once Chavo Guerrero entered the picture, he let Ray know that the man he's teaming up with keeps his friends close and his enemies closer, going to both sides and trying to drive a wedge between them. Since the two didn't have a match at WrestleMania, Eddie suggested that they face each other. Nothing major, just friendly, making this out to be can't miss, that this would be something unlike any other, gassing Ray up to the point where he couldn't say no. At this point, all it was friendly fire. However, the audience saw that Guerrero was annoyed by the unintended one-upsmanship from Ray. Their match at WrestleMania was real fun, but nonetheless, it was the same old story. Eddie eventually cost Ray a shot at the WWE Championship by going after JBL, and when Eminem debuted, he was nowhere to be found to save his friend. Eventually, they lost the tag titles, and just a few weeks after it looked like they had smoothed things over, Guerrero snapped. Snapped beyond belief, because first off, in his eyes, he was innocent, and second, Chavo had reminded him that Ray was not a Guerrero. In a tag match, he stood there stoic and didn't help. Ray then decided, okay, maybe we should fight, but once all the dust was settled, this man was just completely consumed. Consumed by being better, he couldn't shake being second place, and you knew anytime the mask was mangled that the beating of Ray was personal. This man right here was unbothered by what he had just done and had intent to kill with this beatdown. Eddie from this point was more cutthroat than ever. The next SmackDown, he appears with the mask in hand and tells him that he didn't want to do it. He didn't, not one bit. but he pushed him to that point. He had found clarity that the people and Rey were stealing his passion, energy, and Latino heat. But now that Latino heat was back. I'm burying the lead here because the most important part of this amazing promo is him mentioning Mysterio's family. If at Judgment Day Rey comes back, quote, "I have your blood on my hands. At Judgment Day, if you come back, I'll have your life." The character work from Guerrero is borderline psychotic. The immediate flip in who he was, the delivery, the little twitches while holding on to the mask is what separates the top tier stars. This was a desperate man. Not like Kurt or Randy. He was borderline deranged who was ready to do anything to get a win. That's what all of this was about. Winning. It's so awesome when wrestlers make you feel, and I know myself and some other YouTubers often waffle on about how these guys made us feel something, but here you could see it. You could see it in his eyes. Haunted, broken, desperate. Another awesome match at Judgment Day, which ended in a DQ finish in Rey's favor because again, he was too much to handle. Anyways, a few weeks go by and they assault one another, beat each other up in the loading dock, and have another match, which again is won by you-know-who. After the match, Eddie's got this mischievous grin on his face because he knows what it's come down to. The next week, he shows us a little trip to the playground that he took, and here he meets Rey's son, Dominic. Remember that Judgment Day promise about if Rey showed up? Well, he asked Dom if he likes bedtime stories and secrets. While at this daycare, he lures him in with some candy. He promises to tell him a bedtime story he'll never forget. Sinister behavior. So Rey's trying to suppress this secret, and now he has to follow every command given to him, becoming Eddie's personal servant. He was holding something over his head to the point where it was embarrassing for his own family. Vicky got involved and told him to just let it go. But this man was so consumed, not even his own wife could get him out of this. One of the orders was bringing Dom to the bash for their match that had the stipulation if Guerrero wins, Secret's out. If Rey wins, Secret stays just that. Despite Mysterio winning, everything still came out. Dominic wanted to know what happened and Eddie obliged. He told everyone that Rey was not Dominic's father. Eddie was Dominic's papa. The bombshell is dropped and this poor child is so confused, bewildered, awestruck at what he's just been told. Since Rey was shooting blanks and Eddie had a child by accident, he gave his boy away to the Mysterios. Custody papers were printed out, and since the courts found out that biologically this was Eddie's child, Rey now had to hand him over. Rey gets all sad and pleads for him not to hurt his kid. Child Services gets involved. The social worker determines that since both men were a little too wacky, had a couple screws missing based on how they were talking about this child with his custody being hung in the balance, that Dom would now be taken into foster care. At SummerSlam, it was a ladder match for the custody of a child. No matter how many times it's brought up, no matter how many retrospectives or documentaries or flashbacks are made on this, it just becomes crazier and crazier to think about this. What's even wilder is they almost hung Dominic from a harness. Imagine the alternate reality where a child is suspended above the ring for 20 minutes and a human has to unhook a child to get custody of said child. Show this to someone who doesn't watch and what would they think? Look at this. Eddie couldn't be talked out of things even though his own wife was against him. At one point in this match, Dominic comes in from the crowd and shakes the ladder, and Eddie was going to give him a spanking in front of millions watching around the world. Vicky missed her cue and you hear Eddie asking where she is. That would be the deciding factor as she tipped over the ladder and Rey Mysterio had his child back. If only the poor guy knew that he was raising a felon. This was the big peak point of this rivalry. After this, the two had a steel cage match and Eddie won. So yeah, I guess Chris Paul hits a huge 3 to cut the lead down to 42. Basketball game to WWE's game. We gotta close this one out with Triple H and Batista. We've already gone through this one in full, so Cliff Notes version, the animal broke free of the shackles and it was a sight to behold. After Randy Orton didn't pan out, WWE shifted their focus and Batista won the 2005 Royal Rumble. Triple H said that he'd give him the match anytime, any place, on the surface showing that he would face the challenge head on, but actually trying to suppress things and get Batista to go to SmackDown and take on JBL. The Puppet Master Triple H masqueraded as the WWE Champion to continuously put dirt on the Animal's name, try to get him to let his title reign live on, and almost result to attempted murder, but Batista knew exactly what was going on. He heard everything, he knew he was being played like a fiddle, and once that contract signing happened, it was game over. Every minor little thing from before the Rumble win, even with Randy throwing in shades of deception, to the subtle look at Big Gold. Everything about this was awesome. After WrestleMania 21 and Batista winning it all, Triple H became obsessed with that loss, obsessed with getting back the World Heavyweight Championship, and the turn this story took was it was all about the pedigree, how one pedigree at Backlash could end things, but again, it was Batista who came out on top. Triple H hit the lowest of lows, unable to get back to where he was, and it was over for him. Was it time to retire? Was it time to say goodbye? Well, for a period of time, he left Raw because he was getting clowned wherever he went by the audience. Of course, this was a huge ruse to get back to the top. Both guys signed a contract for the rivalry ender inside Hell in a Cell at Vengeance. Go watch this match, and I promise you, if you like violence, if you like a bloody drag-out match, this is for you. It's their best match, bar none, and this is how a Hell in a Cell match should be used. Of course, Batista took it all, and he was a made man. This whole story was Batista slowly seeing that he was being used, slowly seeing that he was nothing more than protection for Triple H, and then turning around and proving to him that he was the real big dog of the group. All the little hints beforehand, all the little tiny nuances, everything about this story was perfect. This is how you create your next guy, and getting 3 straight pay-per-view wins over Triple H, that's how you crown a star. I think people discount how god tier 2005 Batista was. The history books, the YouTube videos, and everything else always points out that this was Cena's year, and that's true, but Batista was just as big. I think that pretty much covers all of the big 2005 rivalries, except for one.
You're going to jail. Now you are ruining America's youth.
Sounds like somebody crapped in your Cheerios this morning, homie.
JBL has got some guts now. The champ is here.
Here's John Cena at the end of Judgment Day, looking like he survived a meat grinder, then got hit by a Boeing 737, then proceeded to get left out in the woods for a couple days. Remember earlier when Kurt couldn't find his way onto the WrestleMania card? Well, that was because of John Cena. He got the opportunity to face JBL, and on the same night he earned that chance, he sent him through a platform. At this time, he was on his high horse as the longest reigning WWE champion in SmackDown history. He was your classic better than you heel. He enjoyed all the fine things in life, champagne, caviar, classical music, someone who held himself to a high standard, and in his eyes, John Cena was the complete opposite. To him, he was classless in and outside of the ring. He was a hooligan who was a disgrace to humanity. JBL said that he'd make Cena bow at his feet, bow at the feet of the greatest WWE champion of all time. He passionately despised anyone who cheered for him, hated all he stood for, and didn't even want to be in the same room as him. On the other hand, Cena talked about how he knew what life was like to be a fan. He was for the people. Now, this is the version of John Cena that clears every other character iteration. This man was way too influential to dumbass kids like myself, kids whose second language is English and just copied whatever the hell he said because we thought it was cool without really knowing anything. Shocker alert, I still don't know anything. Go back and watch 2005 Cena and you see how many times he makes the wittiest little clapbacks in his promos. It's just really good stuff. Anyhow, JBL was the reason Cena lost the US Championship to Orlando Jordan, someone who was part of his cabinet. Since he hated the spinner so much, Bradshaw proceeds to place the spinner in the garbage and blow it to smithereens. When you destroy what's most valuable to a man, you're gonna pay the consequences, so John shows up with a lead pipe and he, much like, well, everyone in 2005, is out for blood. He refuses to leave the ring until he gets a piece of the cabinet. Teddy Long doesn't allow that to happen and he eats an FU for his troubles. Plus, there was a new wrinkle in this. He wasn't allowed to lay a hand on the champion until WrestleMania. If he did, his title match was gone. JBL, being the quick thinker that he was, decides to exploit this stipulation, thinking, why not just poke and prod him to the point where he lashes out and takes a swing? He finds Cena backstage and rips off some yo mama jokes, trying to egg him on by saying his mama had to sleep with the landlord to pay the rent, his mama had to sleep with the grocery store man to pay for the groceries, his mama had also spent a lot of time on her back, saying to John, I bet you could hear it. I bet you could hear it every night. That unlike him, he actually knew his dad. And Cena, just like his mom, should take the easy way out and swing. Even through the screen, you want to punch this guy. Full on devious behavior, but soon to be big match John kept his cool. After a 6-man tag team match, he almost fell into the trap, almost let his intrusive thoughts win, but he thought better of it. He needed to go just 17 more days, and then he could let all that frustration out. However, he also started to think just like JBL. Before their debate, he vandalizes his limousine when Layfield is asked a question about how social and economic upbringing is important in being a champion. He says punk criminals like Cena only make it into expensive cars by driving people like him. They only have money if they win the lottery or they turn to crime. He's sucking the copium so hard, he's turning red. He looks like he actually needs medical attention. While he's on this tangent, Cena thinks, alright, you want to talk about class? Maybe I should just wear a tie. So he cuts off JBL's, he steals his cowboy hat, pours water into it, and he douses this man with water. He completely punked this man out, not just getting the last laugh, but leaving him a bumbling mess. Old man continues to yell at clouds by having officers issue a warrant for Cena's arrest after his vandalism. He gets handcuffed down, all while Bradshaw is screaming, is this common for you? You're used to this. You're a loser. This is right where you belong. And then he just kicks him in the nuts. Off to WrestleMania we go. The 11-minute match isn't anything too memorable, but the result is John Cena won his first of many WWE titles. Now I'm guilty of this myself. Whenever we talk about Cena, it's always Edge, Randy, Punk, AJ, the normal suspects, but JBL never gets that respect, never truly gets his flowers for how good he was at being what he was on screen. Today, everyone's got a deeper rooted story, but this was just a pure bad guy that you had to hate, which made it easier to be on Cena's side. This was just a devious man with no redeeming qualities, no underlying story. After WrestleMania, JBL called him white trash, demanding his rematch, but Teddy Long reminded him of a provision in the contract. He was so confident he could beat Cena that he forgot that it said that there's no rematch clause. It was announced that the championship would be getting a makeover, and JBL, being the smartass he was, intercepted the delivery, thinking that he's got the new title in his hands. Only thing was, it wasn't the new championship. Inside the box was guts. He got punked out yet again with all of this getting dumped all over him. This man refused to let go of the old WWE championship, and like the psychopath he was, kept telling anyone who would listen that Cena was a one-hit wonder. The two agreed to an I Quit match at Judgment Day, but before that was the release of John Cena's CD, You Can't See Me, saying forget bad man, he was a bad role model and a bad example, letting it be known that he would not quit. And I can't even lie, JBL dropped some absolute heat in these promos. The production team put together a PSA featuring Bradshaw talking about how Cena has ruined America's youth, how his lyrics make zero sense, that this man was destroying the moral fabric of the country. Poor Scotty 2 Hotty was out here getting the belt, forced to quit. The match was just full-on sinister stuff. Cena was getting choked out, profusely bleeding. JBL was the villain of all villains, taking so much punishment. They went all over ringside, and from top to bottom, it was perfection. My appreciation for JBL while putting this together has grown exponentially. Like, I knew he was a detestable piece of shit beforehand, but he was the perfect guy to help Cena's rise. This one wasn't a trilogy like a lot of the other rivalries, but that's it for this one. This is a crazy year of storytelling. And again, I posed the question to you, is this the greatest year of WWE rivalries ever? Actually think about it. In the history books, how many of these are seen as company defining for one reason or another? The chicanery in this year goes without saying. One more thing I want to add is when you watch today's WWE, it feels like the directness of these rivalries is missing. Sometimes you just need a bunch of guys to go up to each other and be like, hey, I hate you, and then proceed to beat the shit out of one another for a while, rather than having a big novella backstory to every rivalry, which makes it feel way more drawn out. In this year, no two rivalries were the same. We got a varied catalog of feuds with different reasoning. It was so personal on so many different levels. They tried so many different things. It wasn't a copy paste in every single feud, and it was just a lot of fun. In the comments below, do me a favor. Rank each of these rivalries from 1 all the way down. Tell me what's your favorite in this, what's your least favorite. Did I miss something? Is there something you find underappreciated that should have gotten a mention? I hope you guys enjoyed. I don't know what started to happen with these videos. They used to be like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Now I can't make a video that's less than 30 minutes. I don't know what happened, and I apologize for that. I'll try to get back to the 20-minute mark. There's so much to dig into that it just wasn't possible. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave some video requests down below if you want. See ya.